could talk to the audience here also if you feel like.
Okay.
Hey, and we are live with Shunali Khullar Shroff with her new book, Love in the Time of Affluenza. I don't know how many of you have read it. If you've not, just grab the book and read it. It's funny, it's sensitive, and I've loved the book. Also, the other fact is Kevin Kwan loved her book too, and that is high praise again. Not taking away from the fact that she deserves it, but yeah, how cool is that? So here is the book, and I have a lot of questions to ask you. I've really enjoyed the book. This is not my kind of book. I normally all of us feel a little important about ourselves. And in the same way, I'll say, oh, I want to read something serious. But this has really seen me through, made me laugh. And I'm looking at books like this. And yet there is something which is, it's layered beautifully. You can't call it, oh, it's a funny book only. But you've dealt with some really interesting topics and topics that are very close to women, in fact, in a very beautiful, funny, non-patronizing way. Most of the time, we find that a lot of people, when they start talking about feminism and everything, they get a bit patronizing. It gets a bit boring. I mean, there's so much of seriousness in our lives anyway. You don't want to add to it. So if you can discuss a really serious topic in a normal way, in a non-patronizing, sort of a light-hearted way, I think that's the real way to actually reach out. And I feel this book, in a strange way, I thought it did a lot more for us women than most of the book written for women will do, because it's so real and I can see this life. It's very Mumbai.
It is.
And the characters in it are quite close to being identifiable. Shall I put you in a spot and ask you, where did you get inspired from? Who are the people?
So firstly, thank you so much for the really, really kind words that you've had to say about this book. And I think the whole thing about inspiration for this book, as you're sort of asking me, I guess,
Yes.
is you just observe life around you and you look at the state of relationships. You look at this world of privilege that women inhabit. And yet you realize that while on the outside it seems like they have it all together, people are perfectly happy, perfectly fit, very well traveled, their kids get great grades, have nannies and nurses, and everything is working for them from the outside. But there are cracks within their own little universe. Just like in every other person's life, there are as many problems and issues for people living in the world of privilege. Yeah. I guess that when you have wealth, to an outsider, it may seem like she doesn't have to pay an EMI on the house. She doesn't have to work overtime to pay her child's tuition bills, fees. So what problem does she have? But to each problem, that problem is their problem. Yeah? They are not going to think and compare it with the problems of the world and then put it relatively and say, no, this doesn't matter so much to me, right? Absolutely. And so I used to look at that, feel that, observe it through people I know. And
to a large extent, you're brought up to believe that, okay, come on now, don't be dramatic.
Yeah.
What is this problem? This is hardly a problem. I mean, you've had your aunts and moms and everybody telling you that you have it good in life. And I think which is a great attitude, look at the positives and look at that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there are times when you feel that, God, I know I have a lot to be thankful for, but this at this moment, today or this week or this year has been frustrating me and is taking a lot out of me. And that's what I think is what you're doing through this book, where you show that, you can be wherever, but there are issues and certain things in life are simple. And it all boils down to love is what I found eventually in this book. And that was so beautiful. Your first book was on parenting. It was a take on parenting. And there's been a gap in your first book and your second book. Why the gap? What took you so long?
I think that there were two things here at play. One was the first book was nonfiction. It was a satire on being a modern day parent and floundering my way through it, actually. It was just about my life and my experience. And as a nonfiction writer, for me to create characters and tell a story was a challenge. I can't pretend that it took me 3-4 months to, straight up sit and write this book. I wrote drafts and then more drafts. And also, I think I lack that writer's discipline, as in, wake up every day at a certain time and go for a walk and come back and write for 5 hours straight up, because the dogs will come and the children will come and
You're
the
a mom.
cook will come. The cook comes a lot in the book. So,
Yes, I know. I can see that frustration. I can identify with it. It's like, why can't you just decide?
I know.
Why do I have to
So
decide this boring things?
mom always says this to me, that you don't have to cook again.
Yeah.
You lead a comfortable life. Even the cook is asking you is a problem. वो भी नहीं पूछे अब.
Yeah, I do. Exactly. But it's such a boring thing to...
It's such a boring thing. It's very
Yeah.
mind-numbing. And so I think that I'm not a person who writes every day of my life. I
Okay.
write when I feel like. And so when I had written this book, and I had a fabulous editor working with me on it, who's my publisher as well, Faiza Sultan Khan from Bloomsbury. And so I sent her just the 5-6 chapters of the draft. And then we discussed it, and then I wrote the rest of it, but there were a lot of breaks in between, and I'd put the book away for a few months and then look at it and say, oh my God, what have I written? And so I remember that she said to me in middle of 2017, if a book is ready, send it to me now. I'm giving you 10 days time to revisit it, and once you send it, then that's it. This is 2017.
Right.
Okay? And we were traveling at that time, and I remember in Lisbon, I didn't go out.
Okay,
Because
you were
I
writing.
thought one last look, a revision
Yeah.
before I send it off, and then I
then you
found
found-
it unbearable in parts, and it was stream of consciousness. It was what was going on. It was like somebody was on some LSD trip writing any drivel that was coming to them, and any writer is
You're
harshly
being very-
self-critical.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's why I did it in batches and in patches, and so it all came together. And by the time the cover design and it happened. So I think, I really believe, I'm a bit fatalistic like that, there's a time for everything.
Fair enough.
So even though my book was ready sort of by late 2017, it still was just lying around, because now there were other books to be edited by the publisher.
Right.
So by the time they found the time to get to it, another year had passed, and just
Okay.
as well.
No, that's okay. It was perfect time for me to read it. So it was meant to come out at this time. But having said that, unfortunately, I've not read your first book.
That's
also
fine.
because I was writing my book at that
Of course,
around at
Gurukul.
that point of time, which was a very different take on
Yeah.
it. And I did not want to get into
Reading somebody else's-
about
yeah.
also about parenting, because at the beginning when I had my child and I was getting into, and I got all those parenting books, which, like with when I had my child and like when I had my cancer, I realized that everybody's experience is so unique. And the moment you're sent so many things, and there was like, now I've had this huge list of cancer books that have come to me, and I really like, and it's very kind of people to do that. But it doesn't really apply. It just confuses you, because every journey is your own. And so after a point, it was like, I'm not getting anywhere with it. And so I just stopped looking at that. And I said, I need to figure this out myself.
Yeah.
And the idea, like I said, it was a nonfiction. And I did want to write it in a very light way, because I was going through that problem at that point of time where you start reading, the child starts crying, it's feeding time. So by the time you finish 5 pages, you're going back 15 pages, then starting again. Reading went out of the window.
That's right.
That was also one of the reasons why I started the book club. I said I need the discipline again. So that's the best thing I did to myself.
I'm sure you
But,
must be. There's a pile of books you read every month.
I try and read as much as I can, but like with this was an easy. In fact, I said, I'll put this in. I started it and I did not put it down till I finished it.
Oh.
It was such an
I'm
easy
so
read,
pleased to
and I
hear that.
really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, there is something very, very the subtext in it, in that light-hearted way. So you laugh through it, but it's very sensitive. The book, actually, you're so sensitive. I would love to talk about Trisha. I thought she was such an interesting character, and how beautifully had you portrayed her. And that scene where she goes to her house and she sees where she's living now. And that just puts it in perspective, that she was probably just so really unhappy.
And lonely.
And she has her 2 kids, and from outside, what more could she want? Oh, look at the slut, whatever tart, whatever people would be calling her, that she's having an affair. And the man is amazing, but the fact was there was something missing. And that scene, I thought, made that character for me and the book for me, and just took it out of the stereotype.
Yeah.
There were 2 scenes that were very, very important to me. Maybe I'm just giving it away too fast. Should I even discuss it or not? But even the way you treated Natasha and Riaz was so beautiful. It could have been a very superficial thing.
Yeah.
But you did venture into
Yeah.
it. I don't know. I don't want to discuss
Yeah.
it beyond
Let's
the
not
point
discuss
because
that.
I want people to read it. And that's why I'm putting in these snippets so that I want you to go and pick it up and read it. But it's not something that has just been like skimmed through and just been correct.
Yeah.
But you've really gone into it, and that was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Tell me, if your friend, best friend, actually did what Trisha did, what would you do?
Yes. So I think if that were to happen to me, I can't pretend that I'll straight away not judge. Because to Natasha, from the outside, Trisha seemed perfectly happy. So sometimes our friends even pretend with us.
Yeah.
Not everybody really opens up about.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, I would question and say that, is she doing this for excitement? Is she doing it because she's bored? Is she seeking something else out of it? But I think when you write something and you've written a book and and when you even read, you grow by the end of it.
Right.
I would have reacted differently before I created this character. But I think I'll react differently now because, when a man pursues something, if he's unhappy with his wife and he pursues another relationship, society forgives him.
Yeah.
Because let's not pretend it is still a man's world.
Absolutely, it is.
And when a woman pursues something, whatever be her reasons, in this case, it was an emptiness. Maybe it was boredom. We don't know in the beginning. We certainly don't know because even Trisha is realizing later on what it has come to mean to her.
It's only when she meets this other man she realizes what all she's missing
and
what
maybe
she's trying to
initially-
fill in with probably shopping and
That's
stuff like
right.
that.
But see, Natasha does judge her. She becomes a reluctant accomplice in this situation.
Even in that, what I realized was that there was a time when it was probably if Natasha was not thinking of what her husband will think, she might not have judged her so harshly. So again, there is a very, very subtly, and this is what I mean by how beautifully and subtly this point, I mean, I felt that somewhere as women, we are still we are thinking of what is my, what is my husband going
filter
to
of patriarchy for that.
Because, I would say that if Natasha was a man, he would have said that, I mean, if it was Nakul doing this, Varun would have said that, look, Natasha,
that's
you know
how
what?
it is their private
that's the way
life.
it is because,
Let them
let them be. And you know what? You can't judge it because, that's what is going on. That's what he would have said. But Natasha doesn't say that. She's constantly worrying.
And torn.
What will Varun say? How can I not tell Varun? She's constantly torn by that.
She's getting sleepless nights over
Exactly.
that, right?
And it's not over what she's doing, but more so over what is Varun going to think.
That's right.
And that I thought was so poignant because here is a woman who is well brought up, educated, smart, glamorous, 3 children, has, so to say, everything in life, but she cannot take this call of, is this person going to be my friend?
Yeah.
She's pulling herself away from a person instinctively whom she's friendly with because her husband might not like it. That's what I found in the book, and that's what I felt was
I find that's also true everywhere. I've seen now in Bombay, you get enough material living between Bombay and Delhi has even greater stories to tell.
Ah, is that the next book?
I'll have to move to Delhi for some time and then figure it out.
It would be very interesting.
Yeah, Delhi would be really scandalous.
Yes, it would be lovely.
Yeah, that would be. So I think that, there are so many voices in our head. And as women, especially, there's this voice that has been handed over to us from generations and conditioning. And somewhere, one of the voices is your mother's, of course, which is your voice of your inner conscience. But the other is the voice that the society has formed to keep it together. Right? So, of course, if a family breaks and then, kids go haywire and all sort of things. So there's a moral constitution of society that has been created, I think, by men from time before since forever. And somehow it's just been passed down to us.
Yeah.
And so we don't consciously think, when we are thinking, am I thinking as Shunali, the person, or am I thinking from that little information that I've received blindly without questioning it?
So see, the thing what I feel was that till she doesn't want to go out and work, and if she's happy, I'm happy taking care of my kids and doing that. As long as that's the joy, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, cool thing to do. You can do that. That's your life. But what was so beautifully portrayed was even she didn't realize that she is looking for something else. And in that matter, somewhere her husband did see that emptiness in her and was telling her, but which also came across as, listen, you're only just, is it because he thinks what I'm doing is not important? And that is where she was coming from. So that whole conflict is so real. And I think the age that we are at, we all kind of go through that.
Yeah.
Having said that, all of us with the first flush of excitement of the marriage and the kids, and we all reach a point where I feel it's not necessarily your spouse having an affair or something like that, but I feel a relationship starts getting tested because of the
all the extraneous
staidness of it,
of course,
the routine of it.
Yes.
And that has been portrayed so beautifully in this book. And so what do you think? What do you think is marriage? I want to know from you. What do you think it is? And without the hiding or the societal pressure, what do you think? Do you think it's an institution worth fighting for?
So I have mixed feelings about it. I think there's a lot of any relationship goes through its highs and lows, and when I think more than marriage, when you bring children into the world together, then you weather a lot of storms and put up with each other's shortcomings because you feel we have these children and let's try and keep it together for them. And in the process, you come close again. So you get pulled apart and you close again because sort of having children cements that relationship, at least in Indian society.
Yeah.
And I think that the world that we are living in right now is a world that's very low on patience. And millennials can't give too much of themselves to any relationship. They can't hold jobs. They have that issue of commitment. They don't want to buy homes because that's a commitment. They don't want to buy a car. That's why Uber. So the thing is that in a world where everything is so transient and everything is changing so fast, marriage can bring a sort of a steadiness and stability to it. But I also find that a lot of people are staying together only because of the label of marriage without any love or feeling.
So you think it's time to redefine marriage?
Perhaps.
I'm saying it from the perspective of a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old now. What we tell them is going to. I mean, how do we look at it? The choices they make.
Yes.
If we don't want to judge them, and if we want to be there for them, then we need to understand the changing times. And this question comes from literally, like, I don't know what the answer is, and it's something like you're looking for, and that's why. But you've written about it, so what is there on the pages? There must have been a lot of thought that has gone into it. There's a lot of stuff that you've been thinking about or noticing.
The 3 years.
Yes, absolutely. And so that observation that you've been through is what I'm asking for. What do you think? I'm asking for the shortcut.
Yeah, so I think the shortcut answer is that actually, we are so conventional in the way we've been brought up. But if my children decided to not marry and live with somebody, I would genuinely be perfectly fine with that.
Okay.
Because sometimes, if people, then marriage is just a document.
So for you, what would it be that, I don't mind if you're living in, but how strong is the commitment? Is that what you would look for?
Actually, no, I'd let them find their own way. Anyway, you can't dictate these things to kids these days. The minute they're 16, they start demanding their own liberties and freedom. So I doubt that by the time our kids are, of that age when they want to live in and choose their life partners, they're going to be having a conversation with us about this. I think we'll have to just be grateful if we get invited to their wedding if they marry.
Well said.
And so now they have so many more choices: live in, not live in, LGBTQ, gender fluidity.
Absolutely.
People are trying so many different things these days that I think you have to really. We are from a different universe. We're different.
So tell me, in our universe, forget them. They'll find their universe. Let's. That was the parenting book, and we are done with the parenting books now. It's time. This is our book, I would say, because I've really identified with a lot of stuff in it. Do you think the men would read this? What do you think is your audience?
So no, I think the voice is very strong, a woman's voice. But I had a very interesting thing. There's this friend of mine, and he actually WhatsApped a picture of the book to me. And he's somebody I know socially, so I can't say we're really close at all. And so I thought he had bought it for his wife. And then he sent me the whole synopsis. He loved the book and he said, I really loved it. So I said, when you sent me the picture, I was really afraid because I thought a man's going to read it now. And I don't know how he's going to feel about it. And then he said, why? I like good writing and I like humor and I like a little bit of scandal and your book has everything.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, you know this, that women are expected to read the male voice, the male perspective and the female perspective. But men diss
Absolutely.
women's writing unless it's about a drought.
Yeah.
And or
Something
dystopian fiction.
serious.
See, like Margaret Atwood, everybody would read. So I think somewhere men feel that they are compromising intellectually if they are paying attention to our world.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I have a problem with that. But I also sent a copy of my book to the writer Manu Joseph. He liked it and he gave the blurb over here outside.
Yes, he has, yes.
And Kevin Kwan liked it. So these are men. So I think if a man is open-minded, he would read it and he would think about it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately we're all human beings.
See, so like you mentioned Kevin Kwan again, for me during the time when I was in New York and when, everybody was sending me these books and I wanted something light and easy to read, and it was so funny, and I enjoyed his books, and I read all of them, and and yet there was so much of layering in that book also. But having said that, it's the same thing. Like with this, it's an easy read, and it's not just an easy read. There's so much in it. I would say a man should be reading it because it talks about marriage at a certain point, which is our universe. Might not be the millennial universe, but our universe. We are very much here, and this is something that probably a lot of women we know or men we know must not be talking about it because it's
men crib about it. Actually, have you noticed? It's always men who say, "Oh man, marriage, please don't marry." Have you seen most men will advise their friends that boss don't get married. But if a woman says it, the man looks at her like that because he is the Lord and master of all, and how dare we have a doubt about that?
Absolutely. But that is the
this
thing
will make a man understand that women want the same things. Absolutely. And that marriage is a lot of work.
Yes.
And it's not always so much fun.
So tell me this. The bringing Riyadh into the story. This is the most interesting thing you could have done.
You want to discuss that? Because that's a surprise.
No, not what happens with them, but him coming into the story helps her kind of understand what is she looking for and where she's getting there. But Riyadh comes from Bollywood, and it's a director.
Yeah.
So I cannot resist. I have to ask you, who is it?
Who do you think it is?
I have an idea, but I think it is modeled on some. I would like to know from you. Who do you think it is? Who is he modeled on?
I will tell you. I've physically modeled him on somebody, but I wanted to see, what do you think it is?
I'm going to be very diplomatic and not say anything.
Okay.
Because you see, you can get away with saying it. I can't. So you're going to say this. Would you like to share?
Oh, well, I don't know if I should do it on camera.
Okay. Afterwards. So guys, sorry, this doesn't come to you. This is just for me.
I mean, let them work a little hard and try and guess.
Yeah, why don't you read it and check out? And who do you think it is?
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to have that in the comments.
Yeah, I think I would love to know who people think it is.
Yeah, it would be lovely to know that.
Even I had a Varun in my head also, who is not very disconnected from the world that we live in.
Yeah.
I will share that with you later on
and
see what you think about
that. Yes. So marriage. So I want to just go back to it once again about. So what do you think it is for us in marriage with our kids turning teenagers now?
Yeah.
And how it's going to the world. Like we said, we are the threshold.
Yeah.
And so what our parents were kind of telling us and what they've been teaching us somehow doesn't apply to us because there's just so much change happening in the next generation.
Yeah.
So they feel it's like, we are the generation which is like in somewhere caught in the limbo in between these two completely different worlds.
Yeah, very, very disparate.
And so there are a lot of times when you kind of turn to what your parents did and what the earlier generation did. Sometimes when you're confused, you do look towards it.
Of course
Maybe you can form your own opinion from it, but you do look at it.
You do.
But suddenly that doesn't apply to us anymore. We are kind of absolutely the firsts in that. So what do you do? And what do we do? What do you think?
I think that marriage meant different things to me 15 years ago. And now it means something else to me. So in my book, when I was writing my... at the end of the book, I was thanking people who had helped me put this together. I thanked my husband and I wrote something for my husband. And then I felt that the husband word is too small. because actually he's also like a father to me in that sense. He looks out for me. He pulls me up.
I think you've sort of worded that in your acknowledgements. I've read the
So I
acknowledgements
called him a
also.
guardian. Okay. Because I think a husband is too small a word, because what happens over the years now, you weathered so many things together.
Yeah.
Right? You and Goldie. So what happens is that you sort of, it's a little more than just a husband. It's a companion. It's a friend who you also fight with and disagree with, and sometimes you hate him. And it's also a friend that you really can't do without. We've spent so many years together that I can't speak for him, but I can't do without him.
Yeah.
In many ways. So I think that for me, marriage as a word would actually boil down not even to love,
Yeah.
to companionship.
Oh my God. Fine.
To
This was the word that's been playing in my mind, and I can't tell you how happy I am to hear you say that, because that's what, as I keep growing, this is what I come to. And I really do hope, being very frank about it, I really do hope, like you said, I hope my husband thinks of it in the same way
I know,
also. But that's exactly where I keep heading, that eventually that's what it kind of comes down to. And actually, if you go to see, probably the excitement of that first love might not be there in it, but the guardian and the companionship, like you said, that whole enveloping thing,
that's
is amazing.
It is, isn't it?
It is.
Maybe the next generation won't need an anchor, and maybe they'll find this thing from something else. But also, I mean,
I can't understand what could they find this from.
I don't know, but
it has to come from
but
another
to
human
feel
being.
This also, not everybody is lucky to get it in their marriage right away. There are some couples you will see they're together from the minute you've seen them. They're like a perfect foil for each other in every way. But there are some couples who work at it and get to that point.
Yeah.
And which is why I think what marriage means to a girl of 28 is very different from what it means to a girl of 40.
Yeah.
If she's stuck around with that person that long.
Absolutely.
So I don't think these guys will stick around that long. But okay, that's also
yeah.
fine.
Well, let's see. Let's worry about us right now and see where that is going. So tell me, what next?
I actually, it's funny that every day I get these messages from readers in my inbox and Instagram saying that we love Natasha and can you quickly write a sequel? But that's a very dangerous thing to do, because whatever goodwill you've created with this one book, you can completely...
Not necessarily.
I know.
Yeah.
So then I don't know what next. There are some people who've approached me to think about, developing this into a movie stroke a Netflix series. So if that happens, and when that happens, rather, I will probably get involved in doing the screenplay or something. So then you'll have to expand the story and you'll have to maybe introduce more characters. So I've left it open for now. I think right now I'm just...
Tell me, Natasha, in your book, doesn't have siblings.
No, she's an only child.
Yeah.
She's an only child, which is why she constantly worries about her parents who live by themselves. Yeah.
Interesting. But the Delhi sounds very interesting. Can I just say that before we
end?
That,
sure.
The Delhi...
the lover from Delhi, you mean? Or the parents from Delhi?
No. The fact that your next book could be based there is extremely interesting.
And Delhi has a lot of stories.
And it would be, I think I would really enjoy reading that. But having said that, this sounds really, really interesting. And I've really enjoyed the book, and I'm wishing you all the best for your next book.
Thank you so much.
Don't take so long. Because this writing really needs more things coming out, and we would love to
That's so
look
nice
at it.
to hear. Thank
Also,
you.
I really think it's a great idea to kind of have...
a sequel?
Well, maybe you could have these, add some more characters, but this universe, let me not say like a sequel with that, but this universe is not really written about so much unless it's written about in page 3 or in some gossip columns, and which, I think does a lot of disservice to the universe that you've created in this world. It's very easy to say page 3, the society ladies, or, kitty party.
The stereotype.
Though I will not deny there are the stereotypes, but there are so many more doing so much more. And it's a universe, and it's not represented enough, I feel. And I enjoyed reading it.
In fact, some people have asked me that how did you choose to write about the 1% of Mumbai's population? And the thing is, firstly, at least I as a writer write what I know. So I think it will be disingenuous of me if I create a world that I'm not familiar with and then write about it. Though, imagination is required and some research, so it's not impossible to do. This was my first world of fiction, so I wanted to base it in a world that I see around me.
But
And-
I'm glad you did that because,
Yeah.
like I said, it's very little is written about that.
That's right.
And especially in our country where, you need to write about the poverty and
Yeah.
and everything is not about that because we live that every day and we
I
see
know.
that every
Yeah.
day.
And
you do
literature
want,
covers that extensively anyway.
exactly,
That comes
and you
out of
do
our
want to
country.
read other point
Yeah.
of view, and it is another point of view. And I really enjoyed reading the book, and the fact that you had put it out so sensitively.
I'm so thrilled to hear
Loved
that
your
from you,
style of
Shunali.
writing. Looking forward to the next
Thank you
one.
so much.
Thank you for coming to SBC.
Thank you for having me.
And guys,
It's been a
we
pleasure.
want lots more comments from you. Do we have any questions? Okay. Let me look at the what are our members asking? Oh, my daily share. Is the title inspired by Love in Time of Cholera?
Yeah. So I wanted to write about the world of affluenza, people who are affluent, and where it is like a plague, it struck them like a disease. And as I recently said in an interview, only the title is inspired. Obviously, I can't dare to get inspired by Gabriel
No,
Garcia Marquez.
of course you can. All of
What
us
I'm
are
saying is,
inspired
yes,
by
but
him, and why not?
I wouldn't attempt to write a book that sort of is like his book. I don't think I have it in me yet, but unfortunately, the rich don't catch cholera.
Yes.
So it had to be affluenza, and that's what it is.
Well said. Also, they want to ask you a little more about the issues, which in talking about everything else. The fact that Natasha has an issue going back to work after a gap.
Yeah.
She actually gets a job. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
An offer,
Yeah.
which doesn't happen.
No.
So that is something that.
I think that women are dropping out of workforce very rapidly, even more so today than before, because organizations and corporates don't want to employ them after they become mothers, and they're not providing. Not enough of them are providing creches and so for them to be around their children. And you became a mother. You gave
and
your
put everything up
yeah.
on hold.
I did the same thing. Although my friend Barkha fights a lot with me about this, and she says, "How could you do? How can you say you're a feminist and quit working?" But the thing is, when you are consumed with motherhood, I was obsessed with my kids.
No, and but you need to give them that kind of time.
And I was working part time. But
same here, part time.
Yeah, but my heart wasn't in it.
Absolutely.
I used to keep thinking I want to rush home and be there when the baby wakes up or the child comes back home from school. And so I had the luxury of doing that. You've had the luxury of doing that. It's an absolute luxury. And I'm extremely grateful for that. I went back to writing, though in between, I started my career as a writer, and then I was working at Star TV, and I was in the corporate life for a long time.
Okay.
And then I went back again to writing when I became a mother of 2 kids. I started blogging and then my book, because I could sort of marry this along with my duties as a mother.
Absolutely.
Right? Also, I imagine that in India today, you keep really crazy work hours. So if I went back to employment, it would not be easy. But there was an emptiness inside me.
I thought that was my line of work, where when you went on an outdoor, or you got into a character and you were in the...
Every job is
but
that
that's what...
And commute and everything, right?
Yeah.
And even if, I had my own company, it would still require a lot of time.
Absolutely.
But the fact is, Shunali, that after my second one was born, by which time I had completely stopped working, I wasn't even consulting any longer, there was a searing emptiness within me. Because marriage done, first child done, second child done, school admission done, what is happening to me?
That feeling of, I just want to hear an adult and not the child. Not the blabber, and not see the cartoons or just wanting something more stimulating mentally.
That's it, yeah.
And then thinking that, am I wrong in wanting that?
Oh my God. And guilt. And then I had a guilt about that.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
So,
and so I went through, I struggled a lot with that. And that is very similar to what Natasha is going through. There's a struggle, internal struggle. My mom used to say, please work, you're too bright to be sitting at home. But I was just like, I ignored that advice. I had to do what my heart was going to lead me into doing. And so I was fortunate that I had a creative talent that I could do from home, but not everyone.
What happened with the gap? A lot of women...
I've written this in my first book, that when I first went through that gap, I thought I was losing my mind. And my husband said to me, this was after the first child was born, when I was in between, before I started consulting. I'd wound up my corporate communications business, and I had a company at that time with a partner. I shut down the PR company, and now I was in this space. And I wanted to just cry all the time. And my child was already 2 by then, so I don't think it was postpartum.
Yeah. It
I
could
was
be.
actually, maybe, I didn't know at that time. There wasn't so much information. I was still like 31 and or 30, I was really depressed. I wanted to cry all the time. I would watch a funny movie and I wouldn't laugh. And of course, my husband was really too busy with his work. And one day he said to me, you're all the time sitting and crying and you're not that sort of a person because I'm actually very cheerful, just temperamentally. And so he said, go and see somebody. So then I went and saw a psychologist. Just the one time I went and saw her. And she told me that, no, I don't think you're going through clinical depression. I just think that you need to do something with your time, which is beyond just taking care of a 2-year-old child. So, yeah. And then I think I tried to, because, everyone needs a different distraction.
Yeah.
For me, shopping and lunch is
Was
not a distraction.
yeah, I
We're all
agree.
structured differently.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was a hard time, I have to say. It's very hard.
So I went back to doing work that would get me. So it was more and more of the television, and which was a day in a week. So I could adjust it with
Your
my
shows
duties
and
and come back to it. But like the way Varun is saying to Natasha in the book, constantly telling her get back to work, and I'm like, I can identify with it because I have my husband telling me that constantly. He's like, Shunali, you need to get to work.
Yeah.
You have so much in you, and why you're just then. And his favorite thing to say, I probably will want to kill me for saying this, but his favorite thing to say is that you need to let the child go. You'll mollycoddle him too much because you have so much in you. Then you're putting it all onto him, and it's like an OCD in that sense. And you just need to have a distraction so that you can let him breathe. And I'm like, I understand that, but it's very difficult to get back after a gap. It's not easy at all.
Not. Because you're so emotionally, this has become your world, your child's become your world.
Just to let go of that and suddenly you're feeling like and now you're questioning, when did I become this needy person? This was not me. I was an independent woman and I've always been an independent woman. And when did I become so needy?
I think we are too many women in one woman. All of us,
Like Elif Shafaq says.
So my husband used to say to me, get back to work, get back to work.
Yeah.
You're obsessing over your kids, you're going to make them psychotic by, you know what happens with
because we're
helicopter parenting.
Yes, absolutely.
And so he used to say the same thing, please get back to work. So
Neetu Kakkar says, is this book relatable to Crazy Rich Asians or Where Did You Go, Bernadette?
I actually haven't read Where Did You Go, Bernadette. Again, I don't know. Kevin Kwan thought it was like Crazy Rich Asians, and some other reviewers have said that as well. I don't know. The backdrop may be that of wealth, but the rest of it, I don't know.
So maybe I think I could answer that question, and I would say that definitely there is. It's a lighthearted way of saying things, and there's a certain style to writing it. Like you said, the backdrop of wealth, but I think there is a lot more because I think it's a smaller universe at this point of time, and there's a lot more sensitivity to it. And I think it's a woman writing it, and so the way the women characters are written, I think, is very, very sensitive, and there's a lot of layering to it. Not taking away from Crazy Rich Asians, there was a certain amount of layering to it, but this was different. I think there you could talk about there's a certain amount of parenting in it. There is a woman talking about not, I would, for a lack of better word right now, I'm saying like a midlife crisis in your marriage. But there's so much, and these topics and feminism without thumping her chest, and that's why it's so real. And that is what I thought was so beautiful about this book. I think that's what I would say to that. Neelam, thank you. She's congratulating us and saying she's really enjoying this conversation. Thank you, Neelam. And she loves the sense of humor in this book. So here we are together. I agree with you. This was really, really nice.
I wanted to just take that Crazy Rich Asian thing for a moment. I think that most books that are written in India are usually set in a world of squalor or set in the worlds of what, most people, working class professionals. And I think to that person, this may seem like the world of India's wealth. And I think from that point of view, when people living outside of India don't have an idea of how there are polo matches in this, and there are red carpet parties and all that. So I think that is the thing that people are finding a little similarity with.
But it's
Asians, but I think that's it.
Yeah. They're really not the crazy rich.
No.
Let's put it that way.
That's true.
Thank you, Shunali.
Thank
it was
you
really
for having
lovely.
me,
I enjoyed
Shunali.
having you, and thank you for being so nice to the book club and being there for us. And we're
Absolutely,
looking
ma'am.
forward to the next book or the series or whatever it is. All the best for it. Please don't stop.
Thank you so
And
much.
please don't say that you've not written. I think fiction is your forte also, and you really have to go ahead with it.
I'm so reassured to hear that, Shunali.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And please write into us, ask in more questions. And I do want to discuss more about the book. So I want your comments on it. There are certain parts of it that we've not let out over here because we want you to read it. But I would love to discuss those in the comments below. Thanks again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.